All right, so, well, why not? Why not? We have been through one of these. Actually, Imna was a presenter, and I just attended. It was the one on focusing on engaging students in research. And how that worked is that we have a set of questions, and somebody just read them off, and then all of you took turns kind of commenting. So maybe we could do that. It's a small enough group, though. Definitely we should make it interactive, right, so that we can all talk and that kind of thing. So I don't know. Do you want to kick things off?
Okay, sure. The first question is identify collaborative partnerships. How do we go about that? And anybody wants to start, since I just mentioned it?
Well, I brought Suda along with me because she and I do a lot of our work together, and I thought it'd be kind of great to, sort of show you a really successful partnership. We do almost everything together. We've written grants together. We do lots of studies on young children, and just presented papers together and so on. So, we could kind of share some of our experiences. Just to kind of address the question about how you identify someone, honestly, and this is just my perspective, and you can say what, something
never
different
talked
if you
about
want.
this explicitly, so I'm interested to hear what you say.
I think the first thing I would do if I were seeking someone to collaborate with is pick someone that's like really, really nice and that you trust and that you have a personal good relationship with. And I'm not kidding.
Oh, yeah, right.
I mean, I do think, it's important to think about academic things. But I do think that, like, for me, where it starts is, like somebody that you really feel comfortable with, where you can talk to each other, you can disagree without worry about, serious conflict and we just work together really well. I will say, I'm going to tell my story here. We have quite different areas of study. I mean, we both study young children, but Suda's area, you may know, is focused on early mathematical thinking, and mine is on young children's play. And so a number of years ago, we decided we were going to begin with a fairly simple study that combined these interests. We were going to look at mathematical thinking within children's play. We started with a pilot study, then we got a grant to do a more elaborate study and engage students in that research. And then we've been going since then. I just did a study in Hartford where we kind of turned this into an intervention. We presented it at I don't know how many conferences, and you're presenting something related to that
in April.
In April. Mm-hmm. And so it kind of turned into this kind of almost like new area. But I just want to emphasize that it kind of started with us just wanting to work together. And, I think ultimately finding somebody you trust is really what I would recommend as the place to start, so.
Well, I would like to add that another way of thinking about it is look at your own strength. What is it that you would, what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses? Because if you're looking for a partner that will complement you, it's nice to know what are, if you're a great writer and you have another filmmaker, so you're not a filmmaker, so look at somebody that could add to the collaboration. The other one is, I totally agree, it should be someone that you trust, that you like, that you respect each other. It's crucial. Things people that you have things in common. Or, so maybe you want someone that is totally different, that will bring a different point of view to your work. Because sometimes we need a different set of eyes. So for me, that would be the first recommendation, is to respect each other, like each other.
Most of my collaborative experiences have come from common interests. So, for example, I run a lab with Christy Salters-Pedno in my department, and she's a clinical psychologist who's interested in experimental psychopathology. When she interviewed, she said that she was really interested in what behavior analysts could add to that study, so the methods from my discipline applied to the problems of hers, and that's been a really nice, successful collaboration. And one thing that I like that you probably have too is sharing students.
Oh, yeah.
And getting that collaborative discourse between professionals in different areas and modeling that appropriate behavior and modeling that difference of perspective to the students has been really helpful.
Sudha?
I guess everything that you've all said, and I I agree, it has to be someone you trust and someone you actually can have conversations, like you said, without worrying about disagreements becoming something else. But I think also that for me it is at Eastern especially, we get so focused on our teaching, the 12 FLCs, and this is the only way for me to keep things interesting and to give me that motivation to renew my teaching. So that was a big motivation, and I know that when we worked on the math play, or even before that when we did the technology project, right? So it was it just kept. It was very refreshing, all the research and the new ways of thinking, so that was a big motivation too.
Just to add a few things, in all the years I've been here, I had different collaborations. I seem to enjoy tremendously working with people from the English department, because I did projects with Barbara Mollet and Professor Mama, that they all finish in essay. They have written essays about my work, and it's always evolving around my work, seeking those type of collaboration. I am a visual artist. My name is Imna Arroyo. from the art department, since they changed our department's name. And I also have done collaborations with Jaime Gomez with the communications, because a great deal of my artwork requires multimedia. And I am not skilled in dealing with the multimedia, but between those collaborations, I've been able to produce that work. I also have a wonderful son that is a graphic designer and understands the media, so I combine all of their skills to produce some of my projects. So it turned out to work quite well.
What about collaborating with students? Because I know that a lot of my work has been in conjunction with undergrads, research assistants, and students working in my lab. How do you pick who you work with there?
You should. I thought James should start
Okay,
first.
I'll start. How do you pick?
So most of the people that I've worked with have been in my classes and have been successful. More and more people are approaching me and Christy to ask for the opportunities. I think that our students are getting aware that it's useful for them to have the research experience and the supervised experience and the mentorship roles. So we recently started an application process where before we would just pick students that seemed like they would be good fits and were interested in the stuff that we were doing. Now we have an online survey that interested students fill out, and they apply to the lab and justify what they want to get out of the experience. And so that's helped us kind of narrow the pool.
Are those the same students that are participating in the research conference here? Or
Some
these
of them,
are
absolutely.
others?
Yeah,
Okay.
in the department we have a research method sequence. So every student completes their own research project through that course sequence. But then these are students who are above and beyond that.
I'm going to make a little joke because I did it in the last session, but none of you were there. So this is a new crowd to play to. And this is a really funny joke.
Okay.
No, I'm just kidding. But what we do is we always pick psych majors to work on our. I'm not completely kidding on that. We, we share lots of students, and I said this in a previous session too, that the psych department is really committed to preparing students to become researchers. And I think what's kind of neat about it is, even if that's not their ultimate goal, I think you help them to understand this is an option. This is something they could do. And so when they come into our program in early childhood education, so many of your students know so much more about research methods, statistics. They're really quite savvy. And so it's not completely a joke. We identify really our very best students, but they frequently have that kind of background. Now, one thing I will comment on, and it's important to us to select really good students because we do a lot of the work that we do is our own work for publication or for presentations, and so we really want to maintain a high level of academic excellence, and so we have kind of been selective. I like you though. We've gotten more and more students inquiring now, and it's almost getting a little uncomfortable because, it's become a little bit selective, and but on the other hand, we get really, really good people. So I don't know if you want to.
Sure. I think selecting students is, like you said, becoming more and more selective as well. But beyond students' interest and their capacity to do research, I think we also look for students who are self-motivated, because research, as you know, is an extremely rigorous process. And the way we do research, we train them, we guide them, and then we kind of let them loose. I mean, they have responsibilities. They have to maintain their time commitments. They have to follow through. They have to maintain the rigor throughout. And we might do spot checks, but we really expect them to, work independently. So that's been very, very important, and we've been pretty good about, somehow finding the students who will do that for us. I've also thought that we don't have a survey. We kind of find our students, but a couple of the researches that I did, not with UJA but with the students, I think what happened was that I read some of their papers, and I could tell this is really good. These are good students who gone beyond just writing the paper, but was thinking way beyond what I'd expected. So I planted the seed in their minds and said, maybe you should think about research. And that was the first time they thought about it. And then I shared with them some articles that I'd published with students, and then they said, well, is this even possible that they could be doing that? So then they see the vision, and then of course the door opens. And so it's a long process, and but sometimes our students are not even thinking about that till we tell them that it's a possibility, and so that's good.
Sure.
Do you give them credits or incentives from your grants?
Well, there are different ways.
Yeah.
We often will hire students to be research assistants with grant. So when we have grant money, like for example, our first big math play study was funded by the Spencer Foundation, and we built money into it to hire research assistants. We have done some credit things. This summer, we've got 2 honors students who will do that for credit, but they're doing both of them studies within our children's center, doing kind of elaborate studies. So there are a variety of different ways to do it. We are lucky to have some resources.
Yeah. There was one summer, I don't know if, I think maybe you did it, James, where I was identified the students. They were going to work for just for the research sake, and then Rona's office put forth this summer collaborative research, so I put that grant for that, so I was able to pay them as research assistants, so that worked out really well.
Yeah, most of the research assistants I've had have been earning credit. We have a credit-bearing course in our department.
Yeah, I have the difficulty sometimes because in our field, a student can easily get a job, a part-time or summer job in coaching or teaching youth camps, sport programs. So those money are attractive, sometimes more attractive to be than an RA. So even though I identify good students, sometimes they would say that, oh, I got a better offer, I don't want to do this.
Well, in the arts, it works a little bit different, okay? We have had students collaborating with the performing arts department, especially in theater. And last year, we did the printmaking students printed all the fabric for the presentations. So how do we select them? The advanced students in printmaking participated. So I contact them, would you like to participate in this? And we work as a team. And there's no money involved, but it is the prestigious of having their work presented in that venue really bring a great deal of satisfaction. The other collaboration that we have done is set design with the theater department. And personally in my own work, when I'm doing a very large project, a big installation, students are eager to be part because they want to learn the techniques, they want to learn how do you behave, and how do you do the things in a professional setting. So usually I would have students that will volunteer and would like to be part of it. Yes.
Could I just mention, addressing that particular problem? One thought is to get started the moment classes are done in May, and try and get students involved in something, and still get them out in time to find a job, or that might be one way to get them engaged, and still so they don't miss out on an opportunity, because they need financial support to go to school.
But the other question is, how do you define the roles and the responsibilities when you're doing collaborations with other people? That's the next one. So,
okay, I'll start.
Go for it. Yes.
It depends on, as you were saying, in the strengths of the people. So if it's a faculty member collaborator, if somebody's really good at the data analysis component, then they'll handle that. If somebody's stronger at the writing, they'll handle that. We also tend to split it up. So I've collaborated with Christy Salters, who I've mentioned, and Needy Pandy from Business Administration. And it depends on who comes up with the main idea first. And so we split up our responsibilities as a function of the authorship. We follow the APA authorship guidelines, and the primary contributor is the first author. They have more responsibility, they have more tasks, and then we just sit down and hash it out and figure out what makes sense.
Okay.
Well, for us, it was, very similar. So in terms of the math play study, for instance, anything with math, I did it, and anything with play, of course, this was very clear. So, in terms of training the students to use the math assessment, in terms of observing the math interactions, in terms of developing the math instrument, all of that came under. it was natural. I know I took responsibility for that. And then in terms of the play instrument, training students to observe play behaviors, so you took responsibility for that. And so it was a natural division. And then when it came to presentations at conferences, again, if it was something that Jeff wanted to go to, then you were the lead author and you did the brunt of the work. And then, whereas I went to all the math conferences, so then I did the brunt of the work. So it was pretty even Steven in the end, and clear.
In the arts, I think it's the same. It depends who's the initiator. And then from there, you start dividing the roles. Who's the art consultant over here? Who's the director? Who will be in charge of the different skills? If I cannot do the cinematography, then that will be Professor Gomez and handling that. I could be part of the editing and so on and so forth. But it really depends on the project. And when you're writing the proposal, those roles usually get defined. And I recommend that when you do it that way and then write it, it's important that people understand their specific roles. Otherwise, you will create some conflicts. Weren't you supposed to be doing this, and you're not doing it, and you're getting part of the grant? Right. So to avoid that, it's important that there's communication, and write it down. That way, people remember what are their roles.
Could I ask? I would ask the two of you. I know kind of what we do, but do you include students like in publications or other? Do you? And how do you determine the ordering and relative contributions? Do you have a system for that, or just kind of,
For me, it varies by project. So. Right now I have one manuscript that's under review where I'm the first author. The second author is a student who wrote the introduction. And then the third author is a student who wrote the method. And so we take sections and data analysis and other pieces. And so we negotiate it. Writing it all out and explaining the expectations has been really helpful for that.
Okay. In my case, when I do the books, it has a colophon and everybody have their credits in the colophon. So we take care of that one.
Right.
Too.
Well, that's another way to go, too,
Yes.
is to give credit.
Okay, the next question. Whoa, we're getting out of here soon, sooner than what we thought. Ooh, how do you negotiate the boundaries and conflicts? Okay. Mm-hmm.
Well,
There's something to it, huh?
Suda and I were thinking of like trying to generate some conflict so we could study how to resolve them because we couldn't think of one. I mean, we could not. But it gets back to the trust. I think respect, you know, I mean,
Yeah.
honestly.
Yes.
I mean,
But
I don't
it's-
honestly
yeah.
remember us ever. We disagree plenty. I mean, you
Plenty,
know,
yeah.
but I don't ever remember what you'd call a conflict, you know. Do you?
It's a good conflict, right? If you
Yeah,
disagree,
well, I mean,
yeah.
in the good sense.
But
of
I
the
don't
word.
know if that's the nature, because one of my research is about cognitive conflicts. When children experience conflict while they're doing math is when they learn more. But I don't think the question is it's about conflicts that are disrupt. Yeah, but I think it's the trust and. But I have to say, of all the people in my department and people, Jeff and Hari, two people who have actually given me articles, who have challenged my ways of thinking, who've said, maybe this is not how we should do it. This, think about it, this was perhaps not quite the right way. And that's good. That's really, what clarifies my thinking. And so, but underlying all of that is this really fundamental core of trust so therefore we are open to new ideas.
But that is the fundamental of collaboration.
Right.
You have to be open to learn from the other person. You have to be open to listen. You have to be open to learn.
Yeah.
So, in my case, I feel the same way, that we simply, it's important to understand what are the expectations. We need to communicate very clearly what is the project. Because I think conflict exists when we're not clear. But if that's clear, I don't think, and discussion is always healthy.
I agree.
Yes.
I have, I know people in other places that do have these conflicts. Some of it's ego. I think, like there are people with big egos, and so, you avoid them if you can. The other,
That's the moral.
the other, yeah. I think that's another session, isn't it?
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. So, but then, but I would also say, and this gets back to identified people you want to work with, people that have the same high, both academic and ethical expectation, have high standards. That probably helps to avoid a lot of the conflicts that come up, because you both want to really do great work and ethical work. And so, finding people that are kind of on your level in that regard, because, you got to make sure that the person you're working with is doing the same kinds of high quality work that you'd like to see. So that would be another one, I think.
I think the other one is, if you're doing cross-disciplinary work with another person, is to each one have an understanding of what are the expectations. Because when a good example was, I was working in one of the multimedias, and my collaborator wanted me to make it very short, because in his world, it's very, those things are very short because of the television time. And I'm going, it's art. Double, triple this time, because you want the audience to be engaged. So we were dealing with two different languages within the collaboration. So we need to understand our disciplines well and be able to communicate it to the other person. So far, we've been working well. So.
So how about working with students? Have you ever experienced a student quit in the middle of a project? And how would you handle it?
Move on as best you
Yeah.
can. And
So you fill into their position.
if it needs to be filled in, if it's something that can run with the existing students that I still had, then I was able to make that work.
I feel that if there is no exchange with the work, for example, no credits or no money to them, is a high chance that they will quit. When they find some better offer, they don't want to volunteer their time to do that.
Absolutely.
Then money usually is better than credit. I feel that, yeah.
Well, and both of those are better than just doing it because you love research. Because, what happens is the semester gets busy. The other thing that does happen is, and I think it's part of the learning process, is research can be kind of boring. It can be tedious. And it's good for students to know that. With all the cool stuff comes, like kind of grinding away and, entering data or whatever they do. And so, there comes a point where they go, oh, this isn't quite as fun as I thought it was going to be. So, but, I think some of that you deal with by selecting students who are motivated, but it does happen,
One
people
thing
disappear.
for me, it's kind of related to communication, and for me, it's important that, we train the students and then we expect them to work independently. But for me, it was important that somehow the email communication stayed constant. If I wrote to the students, I would kind of expect a response back. And if their style of email is like, they check once in 4 days, that just wouldn't work for me. So that was important
I
for
don't think
me. Yeah.
students don't use email anymore.
Yeah,
They-
but
it's
I
gotta-
do,
you gotta
so they
text
have
them.
to.
It has to be the smallest little tidbit of
Right.
communication you can possibly write.
But I don't
before they'll
tweet, so-
respond. That's kind of my experience.
Right.
What's
But that
going
was
on here?
important
These
for
young
me.
people.
So it's,
I would just wanted to add that collaborating with faculty is really a great deal. It's a wonderful here at Eastern, and you have to do if you have to do the work all by yourself. If you have a partner next to you, you accomplish a great deal, and you have the support of two departments. And that helps for the funding, that helps to the visibility, that helps to many other areas. So I truly encourage all of you to take the time and work with others.
What are the findings that could be related to this collaboration work that you do with other people?
All of the professional development grants, all of the CSU grants that we have, grants from the outside you guys receive. In the arts, we don't seem to get much of those, but in the sciences and education and psychology, yes.
What is your area? I'm sorry.
Art.
Painting and drawing,
Oh, okay.
same department, art and
Gotcha.
industry.
Tell me your name. I'm sorry.
Maureen.
How are you?
Romano.
We probably should introduce
Yeah.
ourselves.
Yeah.
But I was just curious. So. Yeah,
But I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Following up, these are the grants from the university, but if you also can do projects with the community, and you can also get foundations from the community. So those are things that you can follow up. I'm doing a project in London for the spring 2016 through a foundation, and with that, there's two other organizations that are being part of it, the Hispanic Alliance and the MS-17 Art Project. So that helps to do the funding, but it's again building relationships and locating the grants and initiating the project or finding somebody that initiating a project that you might be interested. These are ways. Any other questions?
Are we done with our list?
Yeah, that's it. The last.
I had a question though. For
There's
the two
one.
of you.
How do you prepare for
Oh, no,
collaborative
sorry.
research? That did made. And
No, I was wondering. One thing that we've been kind of playing around with a little bit, or I have, is like how you get. And I think Carlos in your department mentioned that this is kind of a goal, maybe, and I don't know even if it's the case.
Okay.
Trying to identify first-year students and get them, kind of thinking about this earlier. One thing is, it's such a benefit to have a student who's here for a while, not just their senior year, one semester, and then they're gone. But also, I think this is an opportunity then for us to nurture, students along. And I don't know if you have ways you do that, or are you starting to do that, or I'm just curious.
I'm teaching mostly upper class,
Uh-huh.
so it's a little bit difficult for me to know
Yeah.
students early.
Yeah.
That's what
Well, like we only often we don't meet students till their junior
Juniors,
year,
yeah.
so it's harder for us to do that. Although we'd like to, I had a student, an honors student came over, first year student, just great, and so I invited her to sit in with our team of researchers and all that. But I thought it'd be nice to have some, ways to get students thinking about it earlier.
I want to ask about your community partnership with people in the community. I know that, say, for example, education, you may go to some school, public school, to do research. How is the relationship? How you're going to, for example, set the boundary, or what can be done or what cannot be done?
Do you want to do that one? The UTC?
Yeah, I was going to say. So one of the projects earliest we did in 1997, 98, we had a grant to, which is not that, but anyway, to work in the Hartford public schools. And I think we started with 3 schools. And at that time, I don't think they knew us. They just said, we were just told to go in there. But I think from there, the relationship was built, and trust between the public schools and ours, and they kind of knew that we weren't going to be disruptive, we were actually going to be helpful when we were there. So that spread, and we were there for 3 years. And the relationships we built at that time, to this day, we go back and, and those people have all gone on to do different work, but we just have to call them and they're like, oh, yeah, sure, Eastern, come on over. And so that's been opening a lot of doors for us in terms of, the teachers, the directors, the coaches. So it's been really good.
So did you just do a cold call them up, hey, I'm from East?
Sometimes we do that, yeah.
Yeah, no, we do that.
Jose Colon, and yeah.
We have some connections so that we'll work. We do this sometimes when we're writing. Like we want to do a grant proposal, and we need to identify people we might call. Like we know people in Hartford, for example. We did a study about a year ago where we went into. It was mainly one giant child development center in Hartford, and we had just had connections. You knew the director from a project that you'd worked on before, so just kind of nurturing those, connections, and then just kind of. But with the one Hartford project, it was a grant. Like we applied for funding through United Technologies to do this project. So that's another way to go, is to offer to collaborate with. With a school district.
Do you offer this partnership or collaboration before you get a grant or after you get the grant? Because I feel that when I approach people, hey, I want to do research at your place, when I'm in the process of writing a proposal, but I'm not sure will I successfully get the grant, and ended up maybe unsuccessful, then this project cannot carry on, then that will not be very good.
Yeah.
But a lot of the things are successful if you start to establishing relationships with those agencies and that community before you have the need of the proposal. Because then people feel a little suspicious. Mm-hmm. So why, it's always intention. What is your intention? We go back to the trust. If we trust you, then we can do the work. We do a lot of the community outreach. We can actually do it through the community engagement, because we have an organization here at the university that has been establishing those bridges in the Latino community, in the health and human services, and so on and so forth. So we have resources here that we can use. The other part, the way I do my community outreach also is, right now I'm exhibiting at the Carey Gallery, and they came to the university looking for support. They came to my department. They asked me, would you like to exhibit? Yes, why not? Yes. So because of that exhibit, I have artwork that I have already donated for them to do a fundraising, that they do a program that deals with storytelling in the school system. So we just strengthening that relationship. Okay, and so I will be giving a lot of free talks to children over there as we go along.
I don't want to put you on the spot, but Anne, you've had
Yes.
quite a bit of. You've
Yes.
had a very large grant, and also have been connected pretty closely with Wyndham.
What's coming to my mind is, y'all, I'm listening to you right now, is I just came back from Kim Silcox, and I went to North Wyndham School with 3 students. One was an honor student that Bill Salka sent to me a couple of months ago, who's a freshman. And I thought, when I talked to her about what her plans were, she wants to be a Spanish major, and she wants to be an educator. And I asked her if she knew what a dual language program was, and she said no. And I thought, well, I've got to get these kids when they're freshmen so that they see it. So then 2 seniors who are Spanish majors and taking a world language methods class with me joined it. So the 5 of us were over there. And they were so excited because I drove the 3 students. And they were just so excited coming back from the ride back. And so now they're going to go through Kim to make the connection. So Kim and the facilitator in the school district, I've been trying to get them together a couple of times, and both of them kind of missed a meeting. But today they finally met, so they all have each other's information. So now those students will hear from Kim, and then they're all planning to go and do some volunteer work.
Great.
So the next question that Amy and I have, the facilitator in the school district, is this question about research, and because my research is mostly on the family literacy piece right now. But I think there's so many possibilities there. But to your point, that's like I don't have anything on the table there. I'm just taking an afternoon to take students to visit, and they're just volunteering their own time. So there's no quid pro quo. There's no grand expectation. But my hope is that once Kim and I can get the whole thing set up, that next fall I can meet with freshmen, bring them in, and that I'll have a plan in terms of a research, what I want to get to towards my own publishing. But
Building relationships.
right, but first things first. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
You may have already mentioned this, but thank you for sharing the perspectives. I wonder if you could comment, please, on the initial connections and inspiration. My sense is that much of what happens grows out of what you were describing with the trust, and people already know each other and talk to each other and think, let's do this together, because there's already an existing relationship that you build on. And quite a number of years ago, I was involved with co-teaching with somebody I had never met before. It was like an arranged relationship where we were focusing on the same subject from 2 different disciplines. So I was working with somebody from criminal justice, and then I was looking at it from a developmental perspective, the whole topic of violence prevention. And it was a very fruitful collaboration, I thought, even though we hadn't known each other prior to this, but the shared focus really was something we could build on. And they were quite different perspectives, but they related to each other. So I wonder if you could comment on that, please, just the sort of the difference between choosing someone to collaborate because of a topic that you share, even if you don't actually know each other originally, compared with picking a topic with somebody you already worked with.
Yeah,
Yes,
it does.
It does.
Let's see. I'm trying to think if I've ever done that.
It sounds like with the United Technology, that
Well,
they
yeah.
approached you because of your expertise, and it wasn't because you were buddies necessarily.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, like that's funding sources or another kind of relationship. And also that was the first experience I'd ever had with, the corporate world, which is like very different than higher ed of Discovery. But so, I mean, yeah, that does happen. I was thinking about, we have done things. One time our center reached out to a large community agency in Hartford to put in a grant. It wasn't funded, but and it was kind of like getting to know each other. There was a lot of like negotiation about who gets the money if the grant is funded, stuff like that. So I guess that might be close. I guess the point I was making, though, is that day in, day out work, I just feel more comfortable with people I know and I trust and that have similar, you know what I mean? So I always try and put myself in a position where I'm working, or students, but that I really know well enough to know it's going to be a good experience. So I don't know if that answered your question.
I don't know if anybody else wanted to respond to it from your own experience. It's okay if you don't.
I think my experience with the Carey Gallery, I did not know, they've been here for a while, and I was not familiar with them. And they approached me, and it turned out to be a very nice experience. So that brings in wonderful surprises. Yeah. Otherwise, I will not knock at the door. One is so busy here that doing the work that you miss it. And I'm glad that they knocked at our door because I've been enriched with it. Yes. Any other question? How is the music business?
Good, good.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay. Everybody got the nice letters, yay! The renewal letters. Yes, you remember that?
I do. Yeah.
Yes, it was a good feeling.
Absolutely.
So we're rooting for you guys. Any other comment? Well, it's a pleasure being here in a Friday afternoon.
Yeah,
It's
kind
really
of
wonderful.
amazing,
Yeah.
Thank
really.
you.